So it is not often that the Wilmington region lands a company that plans to invest $650 million in a 1.5 million square foot facility and hire 500 employees. But that is what was announced in October when Epsilon Advanced Materials announced its first U.S. facility would be built in Brunswick County. Bill Early, the Executive Director of Brunswick Business and Industry Development, or Brunswick BID, led that effort to bring Epsilon to our region. And this wasn't even Bill's biggest achievement this year. That recognition came last week when he was the cover model for Wilmington Biz Magazine's Biz 100 issue. Bill is here with us today to talk about both of these experiences. He will be interviewed on stage by Business Journal editor Vicki Janowski. Vicki?
And we didn't tell Bill that he was going to be on the cover, so I don't think he's going to trust us ever again to take a picture or let us live this down. But thank you for coming over and crossing the county lines. I know we've talked a lot today about numbers, and we have some other numbers to run by you just to kind of put this into context of why we thought that this was a cover-worthy story, and also an update, if you haven't heard in the past couple weeks since the announcements, what the details are. So today we're going to spend some time and talk a little bit about what comes next, but also how a deal like this came together for Brunswick BID. So numbers, so should the Epsilon plant get constructed and built as it's planned out and proposed, it will be a $650 million project taking up 1.5 million square feet of space in Brunswick County, with the potential to hire up to 500 workers in that area of new jobs. So to start us off, Bill, just tell us a little bit, how did a deal like this happen? What was the impetus for this to be landed here?
Here with Brunswick BID, we've worked with partners such as the North Carolina Southeast Regional Partnership, also the Economic Development Partnership, and also with site selection consultants. Normally these are companies that are looking for locations that can meet their needs. And this particular project was one that came through the Economic Development Partnership, and it was funneled to us through the Southeast region. So we submitted a proposal. I believe I had to go back and look, November of last year. They had their first site visit in January of this year. And their plans really changed a lot. This particular company is from India. So there are lots of cultural differences in trying to make sure that everyone is understanding things at the same level. So initially they came in and they were looking for 60 acres. They did not know if they would or would not need rail, but wanted to have it in close proximity. They came back for a second visit in May, and at that time they decided they needed 120 acres, and they did want to have access for rail. So we had to start shifting around, and one of the things that worked to our advantages, because we were looking at one of our mega sites, and we had a lot of flexibility on where they could locate on site. They did come in for a third visit in August, and then they did their announcement in October. So most of the time, this is the way the projects work. It takes a lot of teamwork to make these projects successful. It's no single individual or entity. And I've heard a lot about that this morning, with Project Grace and how it brings so many people together to form a team to be successful. The same thing with the workforce development. Everybody working together. All of these are key components that we use in trying to make our region and our communities attractive for new companies.
So was it a competitive process in terms of looking at other sites or possibly other states? And if so, what do you think gave the edge to lead to the decision for here?
It was competitive. They looked at South Carolina. They looked at a couple of sites in North Carolina. They looked at Tennessee and Texas. So we were competing with other states. Everybody had their distinct advantages or disadvantages. And actually, it got narrowed down to two locations, location in Tennessee and also North Carolina, Brunswick County. So we really tried to promote the strengths that we could offer here in Brunswick County and the Wilmington region. You know, our quality of life is something that we always, you know, enjoy. And it helps us to attract and retain good workers. So we tried to use that as an additional advantage to choose Brunswick County.
Okay, and I guess we should take a minute. I'm just assuming you all have already read your Wilmington Biz magazine from cover to cover. But if you have not, or let's talk a little bit more about what Epsilon actually does. Because one thing I think is interesting is this is a significantly large facility, but it's making a component of the battery of the electric vehicle plant. So this is just one part of the entire chain that really we're going to talk about in a minute and why that's increasing so much now. But can you explain a little bit about what Epsilon as a company is and what they're actually going to be doing here?
Yes. This year and even last year, there has been a surge in activity related to the EV industry. We have submitted proposals for lots of projects that were EV related. And one of the reasons for that is because we're fortunate with our Mid-Atlantic Industrial Rail Park that Duke Energy has 3 major transmission power lines bisecting that property. The EV projects generally require very heavy power. So we're in a position to be able to provide that. Now, what Epsilon does, they actually produce the graphite to produce the graphite anodes that are used in the EV batteries. So we're excited about that. All of their raw materials will be domestically imported. A lot of these will be coming from the Gulf Coast, and that's one of the reasons that they were focusing on Texas. They also thought that Tennessee put them a little bit closer to that, but we convinced them that we were still the better choice.
So do you see this leading to potentially other projects or other electric vehicle related work that could be done in southeastern North Carolina after this first step in?
That is our hope with VinFast announcing in North Carolina and also with Toyota. We're also in fairly close proximity to some of the auto manufacturers in South Carolina. So oftentimes we have clients that will look at the area because they want to be able to supply to some of their customers in South Carolina. So it is our hope that with Epsilon announcing that we will be able to attract others that are involved in the EV industry and automotive industry.
You mentioned the Toyota project, and that's over near Greensboro. They just recently announced that they were going to invest even more in that electric vehicle battery plant, bringing their investment up to $14 billion and up to 5,000 jobs. So again, very significant numbers. So can you explain a little bit about what is pushing all this sudden investment and influx of money right now, especially with what we're seeing around North Carolina and the Southeast?
I think there's several factors that come into play there. One is there is such a strong interest and push in becoming a renewable energy environment to reduce carbon emissions that have negative impacts. And this is really just jump-starting that. I think it's the way that the future is moving. I think it is a growing industry sector, and I think it's one that we will be in for a long time. Also, a lot of the political aspects trying to bring shoring back to the U.S., manufacturing back to the U.S., I think has had a big push for that as well.
Well, also with politics, so last year there was a lot of money included in the federal bill that included money towards electric vehicles, towards tax credits for consumers who are buying electric vehicles, especially if those parts are made in North America. Is it a challenge if the political headwinds change in DC and that support and incentives go away with a change in the administration? Is that a concern in terms of projects like this that are on the pipeline?
There will be some things in place that, you know, existing commitments, you know, would be honored. What we're seeing is that while they've rolled out a lot of these grants to Department of Energy for renewable energy and EVs, they're still rolling out new programs. They had one that just came out a couple of weeks ago, a new grant program for this. And some of these projects are looking to be able to take advantage of some of those federal grants and tax credits.
So locally, what happens next? What's the timeline for this plant now?
Right now, what we're looking at is they want to begin construction around mid-year 24. We're right now in the process of trying to get or finalize civil plans for the footprint and layout of the project. We will be working to get the infrastructure further into the site with road access. Also, Brunswick County is planning to install a 1 million gallon elevated water tank at the site to provide fire protection, and also do some internal extension of water and wastewater lines to the site. We're also going through the permitting process. We're having calls with the company every other week with updates on the progress that's being made for the permitting and things that they need to get accomplished. So they do begin, or their desire is to begin construction July of 24, and they are looking at starting employment and operation first quarter of 26.
Which is going to probably come pretty quickly. And we're not too far away from the labor shortages that we discussed a lot last year, many of those on this stage. Is that going to be a challenge, or how is the county and Brunswick Community College and all the players that are working on the workforce development, is that something that you guys have been discussing as well, just available workers?
Yes, we've been partnering with the community college, both Brunswick and Cape Fear, and also Workforce Development Board. They have all been able to put together information that allowed Epsilon to feel comfortable with the labor supply. Also, one of the things that we use as a benefit, the state does research on areas that are growing, declining, stagnant, with population and other factors. And North Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in the nation. And then, as you all know, Brunswick County is the fastest growing in North Carolina. There are a lot of retirees that move to Brunswick County, but that's not all that moves in. The state's working age population is growing at a rate of 3.8%. Brunswick County's working age population is growing around 5%. So, you know, if a company is looking to hope to find the labor supply they need, it's much more to their advantage to look in a community, in an area that has a growing working age population, as opposed to one that is stagnant or declining.
Okay, and just to wrap us up, to put this into context and all your years in economic development and working now in Brunswick County, how does this fit in terms of the potential impact of what you've done in your portfolio?
Well, I would say this is the second largest project that I've been involved with. Just this month, I have completed 35 years as a professional economic developer. And my largest project was in my previous location in Hertford County when we recruited Nucor Steel for their steel recycling manufacturing facility. That was a larger investment, much larger jobs. But things like that are so intense with bringing all the pieces together, it really helps develop the experience to be able to bring others together when you have a project like Epsilon.
Well, we look forward to continuing to cover it and keep everybody updated on what's happening next. Thanks for giving us an update, Bill.
All right, thank you.